Yo, what's good, everybody? My name's Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. I think it's time for another episode of Faceplant Chronicles, which maybe this technically needs to be number 7 because I skipped 7. I don't know. It's out of order, so don't worry about it. However, what we're going to be doing today is creating a live kind of sequencer thing that will come in and be just a breathing organic patch that will most likely be something that's somewhat ambient or whatever, but is really nice to create. This was inspired by doing a lot of modular jams while I was learning the grid, except this time it's going to remain to be a lot more musical. So what we need, and the philosophy behind this, is to pretty much just try to create stuff that is going to be coming in and out. So that means that we'll be using a lot of randomization with volume parameters. We can even do some cool stuff where we can introduce multiple effect tracks, which I think is going to be really fun. So if that seems interesting, subscribe to the channel. I've got a bunch of patches like these on my website. I'm also doing $30 for an hour for a lesson for the rest of September. So you got 2 weeks to do that. And then I just put out a Bitwig course on how to make drums with Bitwig stuff only. All right, advertisements out of the way. We're going to start with a transient shaper. I tend to go for transient shapers over limiters because it colors the sound in a way that I usually don't like. And now I'm going to take a breath because I'm out of breath, and we are going to start designing a pluck. What I'm actually going to do here, I thought maybe I would do it a little bit different, but I'm actually going to utilize a random here, or maybe even an LFO, so like a stepper, like an LFO table. And we're going to use this to trigger the volume of a envelope. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want to leave this in something that is synced. And so having a trigger here with something of the sort will allow us to do something kind of like this, to where we go 1 hundo, and let me get rid of that. Now we're going to send this to trigger this guy. And so as you can see, whenever I play a note, we have something that's relatively consistent. Now what's cool about this is we can kind of change when this crosses the threshold. And what's really nice about this is that we can utilize a randomizer here to start to change the timing of this. And so for me, I personally just want this to go maybe slower. And what we can also do is adjust the random here, or another random here, of the decay time. So now this is great because if I were to play a chord, we're already going to get something pretty cool. So check this out. So let's go ahead and duplicate this now. And we're going to focus on just kind of building up the first part of this. So I guess what I'll try to do is, without coloring this, so it might be a few minutes, so bear with me, but we are going to do some stuff where we can change the process or change this into a melody or something of the sort. In fact, let me take a sip of coffee. What do I want to do with this? Maybe something else that we can do to make it a little bit more interesting is we are going to grab something else. So I am going to keep this to be relatively consistent. And I am going to use another envelope here, and we're going to attach an LFO to this. And I will set this to the trigger. So now if we listen to this, we need to attach this to the level here. So we can go ahead and set this to be relatively slow. It's already getting pretty. Let's go ahead and grab a random now. We're going to set this to be really slow. So something maybe like 2 bars, I think would be a good choice. And we are going to attach this to the depth of the envelope here. And what this is basically going to do is it's going to make this come in and out over time. And so that way it's not always going to be consistent. Nice. Okay. So the next piece of this is let's go ahead and build up some other cool stuff that might be interesting. So we have a lot of options to utilize different stuff like this. And what is cool is we can kind of do a really nice crossfade in between all of these. And we can do it two at a time. And I think that faceplant goes up to, I want to say like 16 voices, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to find out right now, to be honest. But utilizing something like our granular engine, we can get some pretty cool stuff by, I'm just going to go in here and go into the Requiem 3 stuff. So Requiem 3C samples. As you can see, I've got a bunch of stuff here. I have a video on how I got so many of these sounds. So if that's interesting to you at all, then check that out, which I think is the last Faceplant Chronicles. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to focus just on this and take a listen to it. So there we go. It's a little bit softer. Okay, I like that. So now what we'll do is we will go into a bandpass filter here. And we can already start to utilize or reuse some of these randoms. And sometimes it's good to do this because what ends up happening is you can create an interaction between this stuff. And that's kind of the goal of what we want to do here is get to a point to where we are not like everything is just totally random, but when something changes, it triggers something else. And that's important because it's going to make sure that everything stays relatively cohesive, yeah? So what I just did was I changed the I changed the chord mode to octaves, and we're just at a one range, so this is going to jump octaves at some point. And now what we can do is play with the positioning, which is nice because I don't have to add a modulator to this. It's very pretty. Nice. Okay, so we see how this is going to lane 1. We're going to end up sending this to lane 2, and then this is going to go to lane 3. That's already going to lane 3, so we've got 2 chains now. 2 chains. I need to turn my volume up because the air just turned on, and it's already getting hot out here in Vegas. But what we can do now is set some parameters here to kind of change the way that this moves. And I think that what I would like to do on this is we'll change that to sync, maybe go here. Then on this one, we'll set this to go here. Actually, wait, I think this one was supposed to stay there, so we can just add another one. We've got plenty to work with as a means of running out of modulators, which you can do. I have done it several times. But what we'll do with this, let me see what this controls. Yeah. I want that to be smooth. So maybe set this to be really slow. And maybe we can pit these against each other. Kind of like so. And what this is going to do is this is going to start to change the shape over time, which is really nice. So if I kind of just pull this out, the grain shape rather, so check this out. That's so pretty. Yeah, when it comes to stuff like ambient and granular, you really don't have to go very far to get cool stuff. So what I would like to do is a couple of things. We need to set up a system to where this one is going to not play when this one is. And so what I'm thinking about doing is, for one, changing this to a different sample. So let's turn this off. Yeah, so then what I'll do is I'll try to have an overarching high pass filter over all this stuff that will come in slowly over time. And the reason why is because these two are going to start competing with each other. So we're going to have one cross in and crossfade, but sometimes I want them both to go down, if that makes sense. And so we can set up a system here to where I will pull this down all the way and set that to plus. And then if we do this again, then what we can do is start to play with a couple of things. For one, what we want to do here is we're going to set this to 0. Then we're going to go to here. Then we're going to right click this and go -0. So that these might have a crossover, you know, at like 50% to where they're both going, but the resonances behind them are not going to be super crazy. The other thing that we can do is we can add another random here. And what this is going to do for us is we can apply a couple of things. First off, if we go like this and change this down, then what this is going to do is it's going to kind of crush this and at certain points move this down below. The other thing that we can do is while this goes down, we can set this one to go up. So that way at certain points, this will begin to shift in ways that will kind of make this come in at certain points of time, as you can see here. And that way, whatever crossover is happening, it is going to be a slave to whichever one this is favoring, but that's okay because I don't want this to be playing at all times. I want it to come in subtly and kind of creep in. So maybe I can offset this just a bit. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, you see how alive that is? And so that's something that I think is pretty neat to be able to control. The other thing that we might want to do is control the depth of this one as well. Because is this just the cutoff? No. What's it called? Creating a complicated system like this is a lot of fun, but sometimes like you want to make changes and stuff to it. So maybe it might be useful if we take this and move this behind. So what this might do, or sorry, make that bipolar. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Cool. So something else that we can start to do as well, we'll do one more granular engine. And we'll also send this into lane 2, but we're going to keep this relatively low. But what I would like to do is come in here and let me find a drum break. That's one of mine. Or actually, we'll just pull up something from my sample pack. So Alckemy loop, something percussive. Preferably something that has a lot of changing energy. That's the one. So the reason why this is nice is because what we can do with this is change the position kind of like so. And then we can kind of just set something here. And what this is going to do is just act as texture, I guess. We want to change this to be relatively low. But if we listen to this, We're going to add some tail. So now I'm just slowly introducing grain size to make this move a little bit more. Changing the pitch. Now what we can do is we can utilize some of this random stuff to start to manipulate some of these things. Maybe make that go down. So now what this will do is just create some really nice tonalities that will kind of come in and out that can sometimes be considered like texture. And with this, we can also play with a filter, which could be good. And the reason why that might be nice is because we don't always want this to come into play. So if we kind of maybe grab another one of these that's controlling that, then we can set this to somewhere around here and just let this kind of creep in whenever it wants to. Cool. Let's do another filter. And this time we're just going to use a bell curve and maybe take out some areas around the low mids. Where's this at? 230. So 160 is kind of a nice place to... And then what we want to do is we don't want this to come in at all times. So maybe we can just add another one here or something and set that to -100. And then change the polarity to 100%. And by the way, like, please don't try to copy this because this is like obvious. Even we haven't even gotten started with the effects yet. But what's really cool is that even with all this stuff, we've kind of created this living, breathing, organic sequencer that will have stuff coming in and out over time, which is really nice. We're going to make it more complicated, but this is what we have so far if I just play a simple chord. Very pretty. So now what we're going to do is create a couple of different motions with this. We're going to add one more group, and this one is just going to be a saw layer. So we will add pretty much 7 voices. We'll do another one here. If this doesn't blow my CPU up, then we'll have a good day. But what I'm going to do is set this one to 7 semitones. And then we'll detune this one. And then we'll use another filter here, just a bandpass, to kind of change this and sweep in the same fashion. Yeah, that'll work. So we'll kind of just keep that from the low mids. And this honestly usually sounds great. So pretty nice. So we got to be careful though, because this is kind of interfering with those low mids. And so something that we can do is we can create an interaction either between this, which I think is going to be okay because we're going to start adding FM to this in a second, or we can do it to something like this. Um, so let's go ahead and set this to pit up against, I know that made no sense, but just bear with me. We're going to turn this off for a second. And what's really cool is that we have a gain on this that we can manipulate, but we also have a master gain on these groups. And that's part of the reason why I set things up this way. So because of that, we can go into another randomizer. And this is, if you couldn't tell, why I like randoms. And we are going to create something that is going to go right click minus 100. Actually, no, we're going to set this one to 100 because I want this to be the secondary thing. And then we'll come up to the granular here and set this to be minus 100. So now there's an interaction between these things. So we've got this guy, this guy, this gal, this they, and this them. And with this, we can kind of create something that is going to have a nice interaction between all this other stuff. And we'll send this to lane 2 as well. So that means that any rack stuff that we have on here is going to go to this. And then we can process whatever is going on the first thing individually. Cool. Everything seemed good so far. I know it's a lot. So with this, what we want to do is we're going to grab another envelope here. And as you can see, these are still attached and they're going at the exact same time. But what I want to do with this is we're going to use this trigger here. Oh crap, undo. We're going to use this one because this one doesn't have any modulation on it to trigger something like this. And this is going to be our FM stuff. So I can grab a wavetable here and I can start to apply FM to both of these if I wanted to. We could get super complicated and I can have like different FM amounts, which I don't know, maybe depending on how I feel, we'll explore both. But in the meantime, I'm just going to start with one because that's how you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And what I'm going to do is start to change this into something like this. I actually think that, yeah, there was a bit of sustain on here, so maybe if I pull that down. Wait, let me back up. There we go. Then let me pull the sustain down. Cool. So let's introduce a remap here. And what I'm going to do is just set this across 4 bars, as you can see. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is technically 5 because 1, 2, 3, 4. But what we can do is we can cap this out at 4, which I never really thought about doing that, but I was like, oh, why don't I just do that? So if we do this, or yeah, that'll still maybe still work. We go like that, and then we go like that. We need to set this to a magnet. I thought that would work, but it actually will not work. Because this is going to be at 50%. But even still, it's okay because we can kind of just mess around with this and see what that's going to do. But we can apply this to this harmonic here and set that to be across 5. I wonder if I set this at 5, but it only has 4, if it will go from 0 to 4. I don't know if the ratios work that way, but we're just going to pretend like it does. And now what we can do is we can set this to a random of something else. And as you'll see, this will start to bounce and create different movements based off of these steps on this harmonic. So. Grandfather clock. um, Yeah, it's very pretty though, how it's creating like really interesting overtones. So maybe I will back off of this and just give this just a slight amount. And what we can do now is maybe even duplicate this guy and have this one set to 2 and just apply this to the first one and grab this and apply that to that guy. And what this is going to do is give us a secondary piece of stuff. And for funsies, because we've already got so much stuff set up, what we can actually do is pull down on this so that way we're sending modulation into the amount of how much FM we're applying. And while we're at it, why don't we just make this even more interesting and set this to the amount of modulation that we're doing on this. And so as you can see, these guys are going to have different amounts of FM that are going to be applied. Which is really cool. The other thing that we could do to make this more interesting is we can start to play with a melody on this, which is going to require a little bit of setup, but it will be fun. So, because that's kind of what we're all about here, right? How are we doing on CPU? Oh, we're fine. We're golden. This is not a big deal. So let's go ahead and grab another remap. And we are going to come into this and set this to something very basic. So we need this guy again and this dude. We're just going to set this to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of like this. And then go 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to pretty much be an octave. So if we set this to the pitch here, and we right click this and we go 12, plus and minus, then that means that it's either going to be at base pitch, an octave up, an octave down, right? And we can grab one of these, maybe something different that doesn't have a lot of modulation on it. Sure, that's the only one. And we can set this to maybe have a little bit of chaos. Let's see what that does. So that looks like that's going from plus 12 to 24. Yeah. We need to set this to this guy. There we go. Cool. I like that. Now we need to make some adjustments to this because it's still giving us these tones that are making this go off pitch, which is okay. But the problem with it is that it's becoming it's invading the original tonality of this. So whenever this goes, it needs to be like relatively fast. So maybe what I need to do is, where's this going? Just make both of these very fast. Let's see what that does. Now, I think with these, there's two, yeah, so there's 2 of these on each one, if I'm not mistaken. There's 3 on this, and I can only see 1. So that means that something here is being left on, which is that one right there. So this one needs to also have a phase mod on it to where now that's being controlled and being taken off. And I think that was our problem. There we go. Okay, now because of that, my bad. This is kind of part of it sometimes, is going back and being like, okay, where did I go wrong? But because of that, we can move this over And now maybe start to introduce a little bit of decay on both of these. And maybe just a tad. And let's see what that does. Let's maybe get a little bit risque and see if I can just set this to 7. And I don't know if this is going to work or not, but let's try. Oh, no. Undo. Sorry. We want this to be 7. And let's see if we can just create a 5th with this. Yeah. And so now what we just created was a way that we can go from a third to the octave, or what would that be, a low third? Please don't ostracize me. I'm not a musically trained dude. I'm still waking up. Yeah, and then we can change that to a 5th, right? So octave, 5 semitones down, then a 5th going up. And so because of that, this is actually going to have somewhat of an arpeggiator that is going to be coming in and out, which is really nice. And then with, I think, this random, I think that will also be able to change this over time with whatever is being activated. So what is being sent to this? Or where is this going? We need to find it. Nope. I don't even remember what that one is doing. This one. Okay. And what else is this controlling? So keep going. What is this? This is this group. And what is this doing? Oh, okay. So this is controlling the level, which I think is okay. We can grab something else to control the depth of this. So once again, all together, we have pretty much these guys that are all doing their thing. How does this sound with everything together? Okay, so with that, as you can see, we've got a couple of things that we need to take care of. For one, I think that these two, yeah, this needs to be smooth. So that way these two should be fading in and out because I saw this coming up. But that is not supposed to be there. That's supposed to be at minus 100. Or sorry, minus 0. And I forgot that on these, yeah, I set the gain here to be way too loud. So we want this to only be at 0. If I'm not mistaken, let me see what this is at. Yeah, minus 12. So we only want this to come up to minus 12. And that is going to kind of keep stuff where it normally was whenever we were doing this. Such a stickler, it doesn't matter. Let's try that again. Maybe now we can kind of let that go and be a little bit less crazy. Let's go ahead and also randomize the panning on this because we can keep the bells in center-ish. and then we can utilize the panning to, just from these, we don't really need to change much to be kind of already moving for us without having to do any other effects. There we go. Now, I'm not sure about you all, but I think that I was not hearing the FM anymore. And maybe that's just because of this going too fast, but okay, it's in there. Yeah. So keep in mind that within this stuff, we can also do other things that will introduce more tonality and resonances to this. For example, we can do something like amplitude modulation, or something else that we can consider is getting just a tiny piece of noise, kind of like this, and just utilizing one of these envelopes here. Where is it? There we go. To give us just a little bit of white noise. Like, I'm talking about the tiniest amount. Sweet. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and focus back on these bells. And we are going to open up an instance of something like Snap Heap, and we'll get into the processing side of this. So we need a shaper table. And now what we can do, as you can see, is I'm actually going to change this into Requiem 3 Snap Heap, pluck verse pad template. And what this is, long story short, is pretty much just something that I can kind of move in between a pad and a pluck. Actually, I don't even think that I want to do that, to be honest. What I would like to do is create something that already has a bunch of different modulators built into it. Kind of like this. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. I'm just going to set this to be in sync, and then this one can go a little bit slower and do its own thing. As you can see, I've already got key tracking built into this. But what I'm going to do instead is get rid of these. And I want to talk about this very quickly because this is something that, this is a rack that can potentially help you. What this is going to do, or what it's already doing, is you can see up here that these are mapped to these macros respectively. And then I've got this speed icon here, which is, what I'll do is probably slow these down. Maybe 4. And maybe even slow that down too. And then you can ignore this. But what we can do is start applying effects to this that will give us a lot of modulation to work with, but it's all mapped to a macro. And so if I wanted to change this into something else, so like let's say I didn't want this to be a random, I wanted this to be, which I actually do, whatever. It's fine. Let's say I wanted to change this into an LFO table instead. I can just get rid of the modulation here and set this instead. So everything that's mapped to this, let's pretend, right? I don't lose this. I don't lose all the modulation that I set up. And this is a super duper crazy, awesome hack that I would highly recommend anybody get into because it will help you a lot. So because of that, I think that we are going to keep the key tracking. Oh, that's set to the speed. No. We'll set this to C1. I don't know if I'm going to use this, but it doesn't matter. But what I am going to do is grab an LFO table and a random, and I'm going to randomize this. And now I'm going to grab the speed again, oh crap, and change this into a sync, and then make this slower. So as a workflow thing, what I can do now in order to make this a lot easier for myself is I'm going to set this here. I will also pull this down to 4 in case if I want to speed this up. So we're going to minimize this. I'm going to group it. New group. Drag this in here. Bear with me. And now what I can do is I can copy these. So we'll call this effects 1. Bam. Effects 2. Bam. Effects 3. Isn't this nice? Shablow. And because of that, effects 1, effects 2, effects 3, I can open this up, grab the modulation here, go yeet, do this with this one, yeet, and do it with this one. And now I can change this into pretty much anything and set this up in a way that is going to kind of morph or whatever over time. And what is really cool that we could also do, which I might even consider, do I have any of these set up? I don't. I do, but I don't. I don't have any of these saved, which is okay. We can just do one. And yeah, this is a crazy tutorial, guys, so bear with me. We're going to set this here, and I'm going to hold, I think, Command. Yeah. And we're going to create some steps. Boom, 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 bump, bump, bum, 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 bum. You guys know that song? Freaking Master P. Shake what you got in them jeans. Girl, grab the LFO and shake it like a dog. I'm just kidding. Not really. But what we're doing here is kind of just creating a stepper. Yeah. And I apologize if you guys are already like burnt out. I'm doing my best, but I'm having fun, so hopefully you all are too. And we're just going to create something different here. And create something like that. Boom. Make this go down. And as you can see, we're just trying to create something that's contrasting. That's actually okay. What we already have. Bring that up. Close that off. Close that off. Step here. Create a step there. Go like that. Boom. Take that off. Add that. Bam. And so now if you look at this, oh, we might need to change that guy. So let's go back. And this needs to, wait, let me hit undo. Undo. Let's go back to this guy. Wait, edit, undo. Edit, undo. There we go. Okay. Let me delete this guy, figure out what's going on there. Just move that down. So hopefully that stays where it's supposed to stay. Come on. Work with me here. Ah, why is it doing that? That's not supposed to happen. I guess it doesn't really matter, but as you can see, this is morphing into something else. This can actually be really useful whenever you're using stuff like this for arpeggiators and you want to do pitch slides. But as of now, we're just not going to mess with it. And something else to consider is we're going to go done. We're going to go save, and we'll call this stepper. Don't ask me. Turn on 3. Do I have a Requiem 3 thing? No. So we'll save this. into Requiem 3 tables. And save the stepper there. So something that you can mess with in order to make this interesting is playing with the different warp modes. Because right now this is linear, so sometimes if you change this to spectral, you get stuff like this, which is really cool. Just different stuff about faceplant. But we're just going to keep it there. Actually, shit, I'm going to hit undo and just leave it. There we go. And now that we have this, we can apply this wavetable stepper shape to everything that we have. So we'll pull this up. We'll go user, Requiem 3. I think, did I accidentally put this in? Yeah. Crap. Okay. Let me move this. Command X. Can I duplicate the tab? We're gonna go kilohertz. Sorry about this. Snap heap. Oh, maybe I can just do it here. We can go to Eternum 3, wherever that is. Wait, what? Oh, Eternum 3 tables. We're in the wrong thing. We're in the wrong business, buddy. User wave tables, Eternum 3 tables, and just move this to user wave tables. There we go. All right. Back to our regular scheduled programming. Now, first of all, yeah, I am going to fix this. So let's go ahead and pull that up. User, Requiem 3 tables. Okay, I guess I hadn't saved this yet, but maybe we'll do that again. So I think I did save it. It just might have saved in a stranger location. And we'll go Requiem 3. We'll call this Step. Steppy. One more time for the audience in the back. Cool. So now we can apply this to all of these. Steppy, rather. And this is nice because the modulation and stuff that we're going to do is going to be somewhat consistent, but also randomized. So it's like controlled chaos. That's the best way I can describe that. And because of that, with this stepper, we can go back and edit this if we want to or whatever, but you'll see that all of these are going to be changed in a way that's going to be kind of neat. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to make this even slower because of these steps. As you can see, this is very fast. I don't want it to be that fast. So I'm going to set this to be even slower. So like that. 16/8. And that way when these move, it'll give whatever it is that we start doing to this a chance to breathe. Because if it's too fast while everything is moving, the motion is going to kind of smear it and it's not going to work out so well. So let's start off with something like a delay. Hope y'all are ready for the funsies. And we'll go here, set this to sync. And now we can just start to apply this to different stuff. We can set this to go like this. And really at this point, the world is your oyster. So have lots of fun. And what I'm going to do is kind of just set up some basic stuff that is supposed to give us some variety. So maybe with this, we can adjust here. We can grab another reverb on this and set this to go all the way up. And we'll turn the mix on for now. I think that the only thing that's playing through this is this. So we can kind of just go crazy with this, but check this out. Isn't that nice? Now we can also create a pseudo pitch shifter with this. So let's go here. And I'm actually going to set the mix to go down by 50%. And that's kind of the thing with this. Excuse me. I'm going to set all of these to be not unipolar as opposed to bipolar. And turn all of them down. So that way we're going to get as much interaction and variation as possible. We can also grab another one of these and set this to be maybe like +12. But utilize a different one this time. It's pretty nice, right? So what I've realized is that the steppers on these usually don't go to 0. So in order to help us out from time to time, I'm going to set this at 16. And then I'm going to change the depth of these to turn off every once in a while. And because of that, within this patch, this will allow us to sometimes have that clean signal, because sometimes that's what we want. Now we're going to have even more variation. Oh yeah, that's nice. Dash Nash. So let's go ahead and grab this, and we're going to do another delay here. We can also do some instances of comb filtering, which could be nice. Set that to stereo. I'm going to show you all a physical modeling trick. Shout out DataBroth. Remember that key tracking that we did? So what I'll do is I'll set this to C. C2-ish. Doesn't need to be perfect. But I don't really care what the subsequent stuff after this is. It's more so just redefining the fundamental. But what's cool is we can kind of just create a custom comb filter. How many bands can you have on this, by the way? I'm very curious. I don't know, we'll just keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So more than 10. That makes Slice EQ pretty crazy. The only thing that I don't like about Slice EQ is that you have to open up the modulation individually if you want to do stuff like that. What I would prefer is just being able to like map. I don't know how I'd fix it. But one thing I do hope that, or wish that Kilohertz would add, I'm just going to keep going until like until it tells me to stop or what. Actually, no, that's fine. Is a scale. So that way I can flip it. But what we just did was we created a custom comb filter, and this is awesome because we can actually kind of move this up and down, right? So we can say, hey, with this that we have, we can set the root note of this to C2 and change the offset to, I don't know, let's go 48 semitones. And then right click this and go 48. Now that we have this, we can actually duplicate this. And what this is going to do is allow us to change the pitch of these. So oh, that's so pretty. Now, there is a caveat to this. And the problem that lies within this is that this is not polyphonic. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take the highest note of whatever you have, but that's okay. If you were to do this inside of this, then you can set this to poly, but the problem is that you can't have one thing poly and the other thing not poly, which means that if we were to set this to be poly, we could, but you got to be careful with this because this is the fastest way to crash your computer. Especially if you don't have a crazy computer. Luckily, I've got a pretty strong one, and I would say if you have the manpower, because I'll put this up for the ARCANUM members, then you could do it. Okay. Oh, yeah, see. We don't want to do that, because that's going to kill us. And to be honest with you, you can't tell the difference anyways. Like, at a certain point, we're doing so much modulation and so much of this, like, patchwork that it's like, yo, Uh, do we really need all this? It is kind of excessive. Yes, of course we need it, because that's the whole point of phase plant. This is why you can't like mess with any other synths. Like nothing goes other than like real modular stuff. Nothing goes as deep as phase plant. Um, well, I guess Falcon technically could, but could you imagine trying to set this up in Falcon or even Contact? Not me. I guess Reactor would be another alternative. So I know that someone's going to say VCV Rec, but that's modular, so leave me alone. Let's go into a reverser. And every once in a while, we're going to set this up to come in as well. Remember that curved random that we had? Did we lose it? I think we did. So this one is just going to be like a rogue, if you will. We'll set that to like 32/4 because I want this to like almost never come in. Oh yeah. And something that's really important for me is I want this to never re-trigger, because otherwise whenever I play a note over this, it's going to flip it around in different spots. I don't want it to do that. I just want it to do its own thing and just kind of mess around whenever it wants to. The other ones are okay. I'm not really too worried about that. But within this is just a very easy way that you can introduce tons of movement and nice spatial stuff. Maybe perhaps what we can do is try to give it a little bit of control, especially right here in the mids and the high mids. This is very common resonance points that can make this just sound absolutely hard. Maybe what I might want to do is not pull that up all the way. Maybe just like 50%. Cool. All right. So I'm going to duplicate this now. And I know that this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to delete all this stuff. No. And I am going to save this into the Requiem 3 snap heap. And we'll call this rec generator. I think I already did this. I want to say that, oh man, I think I already did this. Plug first pad, Space Cadet, masterclass demo. Did I already do, is that what this is? No, okay, maybe I didn't. Okay, that's fine. Because this is pretty much like how I would set my template. So I can right click and set as default. And this is important because whenever I pull this up, if I want to have something that's going to be randomized, then now I don't have to do this ever again. This is why I have a lot of value within my preset packs, even if you don't like the stuff that I usually do. Think about all the time you could save if you don't have to like set all this stuff up on its own. Also, could you guys like the video if you're still here? Tell me what your favorite dog breed is. And if you don't like dogs, then tell me why. If you better like dogs. If you don't like dogs, I don't like you. No, I'm just kidding. So what we can do now though is we're gonna set up a different rack of what's it called? We're gonna set up a different rack of effects for this, and I think that we're gonna do 2 each on each side. So we're almost done. We're just kind of doing a little bit more here to have fun. So I'm gonna set this to go here. And within this, we can also set up something that might give us some different kinds of rhythm, which I think could be cool. So maybe something like a trance gate. And, excuse me, we can do something kind of like this. Let's go ahead and do another one. And this one is going to be set to 1/16. One of these is going to go on. The other one is not going to go on. And then what we can do to kind of blend this in is set some long reverb over this. Kind of like so. Go boom. Okay, cool. Now that we have that, remember when I was telling you about how we can utilize macros in order to change things? Well, something that we can do is the same thing. So one goes up, one goes down. I just did that backwards, but that's okay. So this one goes up, this one goes down. And now if we change this, we can kind of morph in between these. And not only that, but because of this, one other thing that we're going to do as well is we're going to add in a third player to this to where we are actually going to change the mix. So now behind all of this, we have rack 1, rack 2 that's messing with the mix in between, and then we also have something that's going to mix in between this, which is pretty cool. Let's go ahead and set this to be really slow. We're going to grab another one that's going to be about half that, so maybe 16/4. And we can morph in between these now. So we can say lane 1 morpher. Morper. Come on, Ian. Come on. Each lane 1 morph. And now, take a listen. I'm going to change this to never retrigger. And I think that we need to set these to smooth. I'll see you all tomorrow. I'm going to sleep. Yeah, you see how alive that is? And it's just something that's very simple. And I love doing this kinds of stuff because this is going to kind of create this really cool ecosystem when we're blending all of these together. And so now that we have that, we can go into lane 2. And this is the part where I would say, hey, kilohertz, I would love it if you could add more lanes, because I like sending stuff into these in order to create these soundscapes and stuff that give us more options, because right now we're kind of having to shove everything else, which is the granular, the saw waves, and the textural thing, into the end or into lane 2. So that's kind of a lot, but that's okay, because what we can do now is go and do pretty much the same thing. See how this is already done? I don't have to do it again, and we can start messing with other stuff that might be more interesting. So let's go ahead and play with some filter stuff. And what I'm going to do on this is on effects 1, I'm going to make this smooth. Yeah, look at that. And I'm going to make this a little bit slower. Maybe pull this down by quite a bit and maybe set this to, there we go. So I want this to go from full to down, and that way it's not going to close all the way. We can also set something like this. We don't really need too much delay. Maybe some instances of reverb and stuff. So maybe we can set up a couple of convolution things in a similar way. And the reason why is because if we just have so much delay that's just being like blasted in us, then it's going to kind of ruin the experience, or it can anyways. And so let me make this really slow. We can also set this to be smoother. Forgot I could do that. That's really nice though. Let's go ahead and set a long reverb on this because I think that's going to be nice. Go here. Now these two are pitted against each other, pitted against each other, going against each other. We can add some flanging, which could be nice. Just subtle instances of it. We don't need much. And we could do some quote unquote neural filtering on this, which could be nice. So where we're going to create a pseudo bandpass. Now, something that I've talked about on neuroprocessing on all this stuff is that you kind of want to be mindful of the frequency ranges that you do, but maybe instead this time I'm not going to focus on pulling that low end up so much, but we will take inspiration from kind of almost like, I don't know, creating a comb filter and a neural filter is very similar. The only difference is that you can see that these are much smoother. So that way, hopefully those resonances are not so sharp and shrill. But what we'll do is we're going to create a custom bandpass like this, and we're going to leave it with shelves. And the reason why is because if I turn the mix down, look at that. If you do cuts on this, not only are you going to have to, you know, just as a technicality point, you'll deal with phase shifting, but the problem is that you could, you can't rather turn the mix down on these. So just as a demonstration, you see how there's this. Even if I turn the mix down, you're going to see that this cut is still there, and we don't really want that for this particular case. The reason why we don't want that is because we want to be able to pull this back and let it kind of breathe. Now, something that I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on more notches here and pull those down because I want this to do more cutting than I want it to do more boosting. But now that we have that, we can kind of set this to move around, and let's go super smooth all the way. Maybe not super, super smooth. Maybe what we can do with this is we'll grab another one of these and I'll adjust the smooth of this one. So that way sometimes it's kind of, yeah, look at that. You know, it's like little legs running. That's pretty funny. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's one leg, there's another one. It's like running across the floor. Okay, you got to be weird. Be weird. Be weird. Let's go ahead and grab this. And I just deleted that. I don't want to do that. What else can we do to make this sound kind of cool? Maybe we'll do... I don't know how this is going to sound, but I'm curious. But maybe what we can do is just slight amounts of like this much. And what's cool about this one is if we change the delay time of this, the pitch, oh yes, it will. We don't want that one. We want the dual delay. If we change the pitch of this one, it's not going to jump. And so, or sorry, if we change the delay time of this one, the pitch isn't going to jump. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying here. I'm like already cooked. But what we can use this for is kind of just giving this tails that are artificial and sound unnatural. And so sometimes that could be nice. But let's go ahead and turn this off. And let's see what this sounds like together. I'm gonna add just a little bit of this. Ooh. And the best way that I can tell you all how to like figure this stuff out, because if you're like, yo, what are you doing? Like, how do you go from this to this? Is just add effects and listen to it. Just listen to it over time and see what it's doing. Um, maybe for this we can make this even longer, so that way it will. Nice. Sweet. Okay. So we can map that here. Go boom. Let's create another one. Open this up. And maybe this time we can just focus on like creating. What do I want to do with this? It doesn't matter. Maybe what we can do is play with different patterns here of this. I know that I said that I don't want to do this, but whatever. It could be cool. Let's just try it and see what happens. So we're going to set the effect time of this to kind of come in every once in a while, kind of like so. And then what we can do is we can add a fifth. Kind of like so. Let's create a dense reverb. Just one though. So long decay. Maybe bring this up a bit. Turn this up. Make sure the other one's down. Yeah, it is. Let's see what else we can add to this that might be kind of cool. Ah, we can do some of this. So low pass noise. And just like ever so slightly bring up the mix. This will create just a little bit of noise on top. So and what we can also do on this is, like, I just want to show you how deep this rabbit hole goes, is we can actually add another one in here. Set this to parallel. Turn the gain down. Grab a filter here. Set the pitch of this to, where is this at? Pitch shifter, plus 12. So this is a more deliberate effect, but this is something that I'm going to want to kind of like implement here and there. But the pitch is there, and then we can actually grab a dual delay, turn that off, turn that down, and we're just going to leave that there. And we can slowly introduce the mix on this, or sorry, the gain rather, to kind of come in. We don't need this other modulation. And so what I'm going to do is just, yeah, it's fine. We can delete these other ones. They don't cause a lot of CPU, but just in case, we'll set this to be super smooth. Set that to be there. And let that kind of just come into play every once in a while. Okay, I am going to do this because just very quickly, I'm going to go to this one and we're going to introduce a sine wave. And then on this one, we are going to introduce a square. Boom. And so now it's a very easy crossfade in between the two. So that one should be there. This one should be, let's go done. That's a square now. What is this? This should be sine, like that. Now we can crossfade. Done. Yoink. Very easy. Set something kind of like that, and then let that kind of bounce around or whatever. So we can leave that on. And now this will create some pitched up delays and stuff, but I'm going to hide it behind the reverb to kind of smear it. Pretty cool, but it's a little bit much. Like -6. And now let's go ahead and introduce this guy. And now we can give this just a little bit of drive. Fuck, too much. I think just putting this on in general will actually make this fatter, so. So now what I'll do is we'll flip this macro, kind of like so, to where now this is kind of doing the same thing and making that move. And then we can do one more, maybe, like this, that will pull the mix down. So now we've got this hugely dynamic thing that is going to morph between all of this stuff. Now, keep in mind too that if you want to add more stuff, you absolutely can. For example, if I wanted to add like a consistent melody over this, so I could do something like, I don't know, maybe even here. Turn off all these guys. You can utilize this sometimes if you're only playing one note to actually create a melody for you or something. And I tend to want this to be playable, so I want you to be able to play chords and whatnot, and that's why with the remaps and whatnot that we put onto this, I left it as a means of like only octaves and fifths. But you absolutely could set some kind of LFO sequence on this, kind of like so, to be like hello, to be like this. So do something of the sort, and then just put a remap on it to where it'll kind of like move around and map that to something. And if you wanted this to be like a beat, say, then you could do something kind of like so. Yeah, I guess that could be fun, to where we can have this set as an envelope. You're going to need a couple, but let's just say we wanted this to be like a very simple kick. We'll set that here. And this needs to be lane 3. And then we're going to need another one, kind of like so.
Recording to logbook.
Thank you for the follow, whoever that was. There we go. Now you're going to have to be mindful about what pitch you play on this, so you'll have to adjust this. But if we set this to 100, kind of like so, and then turn it down, and then turn it up, and then turn it down, and then turn it up, 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 and then turn And then let's just say we did something like very, very easy, like an LFO. Set that there, set that to 1/4, make this trigger. We can even set this to the master if you don't want it to go through any of the other stuff. But you can also do stuff like this to where you add some overdrive. We can even make this punch. We would have to do, sorry, we'd have to do this one because we don't want it to go down below, but and like I said before, like you'd have to be careful, and like you can only play one note with this because if you start doing a bunch of kicks, then you start getting into footwork, which is cool. But if you kept it to one note, then you could definitely get away with it and just do something kind of like this. And this can be whatever pattern you want. Yeah, so I'm going to turn that off because we don't really need that. And I'm like, you could, but just keep in mind that as long as you have spaces here and spaces here, you can keep adding stuff to this. But this is pretty much how you build a cool sequence of stuff that becomes very alive and organic. And then also going in and changing the timing, or, you know, because I created these racks that are already set up, you can swap them out, which is great. So you can change it to something like like maybe one of the Requiem patches, or, you know, a neuro filter or something. And then like the mapping is already there for you. So with that being said, more for 2, let's go ahead and just put a chord on this. And then I'm just going to listen to it for a little bit and then we'll wrap the video up. So my favorite chord is pretty much I think it's a C minor. Just that one. And the reason why I play this one all the time is because I'm on a chordy keyboard, and this is the easiest, like, 7th chord to play. Grab another C. And let's just listen to this for a bit and see what this does. And with that, my friends, this is how you can create a live, organic, ever-evolving texture that is really nice to just put on for 10 hours and pass out to. I know that we covered a lot of information, but if you made it to the end of the video, I really appreciate you sticking around. I've got tons of resources like this on alchemy.com, or you can book me for a lesson if you want to go through this again, but maybe I walk you through the steps with somebody looking over your shoulder. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate everything. Even just liking the video and honestly leaving a comment does so much for me. So tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. I don't care if it's negative. Yeah. Much love, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.